Greetings, guys and gals. This is Joe Old Buddy Wilbury Steve, along with his co-partner, Bertie Wilbury, and we have a very special guest here who is going to promote his brand new book, which is based on the ELO album from 1981, Time. And the name of the book is Yours Truly, 2095. And here is the author and writer, Brian Paone.
Hello, good morning.
All right, how are you doing?
Good. It's morning for me because I'm in Japan, so.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Well, as I told you in one of my last emails, my friend here had a brother who did live in Japan and sadly has passed away.
Well, so, in Singapore, but close enough.
Yeah, but close enough.
Yeah.
All right.
Same.
All right. Right. All right. So now then, let's get started with the questions. I'm going to ask the first one, and then my co-partner here will ask the second one.
Okay.
All right. What inspired you to write the book?
Well, you know, I'm a longtime Electric Light Orchestra fan. They're probably growing up one of my two favorite bands that I discovered really, really young, like 6 years old. The other one being Pink Floyd. And
wow.
Yeah, I'd say Pink Floyd and ELO were at 6 years old, like literally the only thing I wanted to listen to. You know, back in the 70s, I had my parents bought me my own little vinyl player, you know, a little like Fisher Price one, but it actually worked. And
oh yeah,
it had like a bright orange arm on it and everything like that. You know, and I would put myself in my room and I would listen to Dark Side of the Moon or like Out of the Blue, the ELO album, just like over and over. And you know, as a kid, it was seeing visuals in the music, you know, and far beyond like what they were saying and what they were singing. So with inspiring the book, Time, when it came out in '81, became my favorite ELO album of the whole catalog, and it has stayed. And you know, it's funny, if you research them online and like look at Amazon reviews of all the albums, it seems that their entire discography, everyone will comment on certain songs on certain albums, but
yes.
seems to be the only album where everyone is in agreement that like this is a full album. It's a complete work. It's a complete body of work, you know?
Right.
And even the you know, couple albums that came out after Time, you know, Secret Messages and Balance of Power and Zoom, you know, I still didn't feel held up to Time as a whole. I just think it's probably one of the best visually concept albums that's ever been written. And to be honest, I was surprised. Here we are in 2015. I'm surprised that no one has made a movie or written a book yet. I can't believe that, you know, I was the first one to think of this.
And you want to know what's so funny though? Years ago, I had written a small short story, and I don't know where I put it, but it was partly based on the Time album. Right. And one of the instrumental tracks, which was Another Heartbreak, right, kind of brought it on. And I actually got that story. A disc jockey in the UK basically read my story on the air, and it was called The Glowing Light.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's about as much as I'll tell you.
Yeah, and I've been a long-time friend with this guy as well. And I remember when I got the album, it was so... The only thing I could put it close to would be, you know, a concept album like maybe Sgt. Pepper or something like
right.
that. It had the same type of mental visuals that would come along with it. And,
right.
And I love the whole futuristic idea. It was just so different than anything else.
Right. And I think some of the sounds that they used could have been cheesy, but somehow they pulled it off, and it's, you know, no pun intended, the album's almost still timeless, you know?
Right.
Okay.
There.
Right. Well, okay, here's the next question to follow up with your last response. Okay, what are your earliest memories of listening to ELO?
I would say that the earliest memory I have is the day that my mother brought home Out of the Blue on vinyl. And if either of you ever had that, it's a double vinyl because they couldn't get it all on, you know, one you know, discs.
Right. Right.
And the front cover is the white spaceship flying into the ELO
mothership. Yes.
The mothership. And then when it opened up, it was so bright, and there was so many colors. And before we even took the vinyl out, I think I was, like I said, I think I was about 6 years old when she brought that home. And it was because the song "Sweet Talking Woman," was on the radio, and she bought the album for that song. There wasn't singles back then yet. And I remember her putting it on, and it's funny that you bring up Another Heartbreaks on the Time album, because listening to it, it was actually some of the instrumentals as a kid that I gravitated towards.
Oh, yes.
And so I kind of latched onto that. So I remember sitting there and listening to Out of the Blue. And when you're 6 and 7 years old, you don't know how to research and find out if the band has other albums. You only know what people tell you. Right. Those things, like, I had no idea that this band had any other songs other than the ones that were on the Out of the Blue album. But I had some older brothers and older sister, and because they were older than me, they were teenagers already at the time. I remember them bringing the other albums into the house. So, I kind of built that way.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. Oh, definitely very, very wonderful. Okay, now, in relation to the third question that I'm going to ask, do you consider yourself a futurist, or is this something out of the norm?
Well, I do love science fiction and time travel stories and movies. I'm kind of a sucker for time travel stuff, and I always have been. Honestly, I never thought that I would write in the genre. It wasn't anything that I said, I have this burning desire to go write, a time travel novel that's a different spin on everything. I really just wanted to write ELO's Time album into a novel, and it just so happens that it's the core of it is time travel. But I think that the album is less about time travel and more about the main character, the I character, because it's in first person, that person's plight to, like, rediscover themselves through being inadvertently and involuntarily flung into the future, and one of my guilty pleasures,
kind of character. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of my guilty pleasures is quantum physics. I'm kind of like I'm a closet geek or a closet nerd when it comes to quantum physics. I don't understand about a third of the words that I read, but I will read, any article, anything I can get my hands on. And when I was writing the book, I realized that nowhere in the album does Jeff ever talk about how the I character winds up in 2095 in the album. You're just supposed to assume that he's there. And
yes, that's true. That's true. It's like when during the part where he mentions the prologue into the Twilight. I think that what wound up happening was that this guy kind of stepped into a parallel universe, and he wound up in the future somehow.
Right. Well, that's a great explanation. So what I did was I actually started talking to another ELO fan online who knows a lot about quantum physics, and me and him started bouncing some ideas back, and we said, for the book, or if this was ever a movie, you can't just have a time travel story and not say how the heck it happens. I mean, you have to. I understand in the album he never really says, but that's not going to fly for readers. Readers are going to be like, what is this crap? I need to know how this happens. So we use the theory of entanglement to discuss how it actually happens. And I know that nowhere in the album is the theory of entanglement ever mentioned. So I had to take some, personal liberties or licensing to come up with, but it's the idea that, if you take an atom and split it in half and send one to the other side of the universe and keep one here, if you spin one clockwise, the other one will spin counterclockwise. They're always, I'm sorry, they're always, connected. So we use that theory to say that he's in 1981, but also in 2095.
Okay.
So, it is time travel, but is it really time travel? But yeah, it was a lot of fun exploring that. I had a lot of fun, taking the lyrics of the album and then going back to quantum physics and going, how can I make these two, coincide and not lose the reader in a bunch of mumbo jumbo too,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
Or technical babble, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or technical babble. And that's what I love about Michael Crichton is, he has these science fiction worlds, but I'll tell you what, you read it and he actually gets you to believe that this could happen.
Right.
He uses, science, and you go, wow, you know what? That's, So I think we kind of went on that. I went on that angle, writing the book,
Okay.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, here's the next question. Okay. Sometimes writers put a little of themselves in whatever they are writing about, such as, Alfred Hitchcock or, something like that. How do you fit into it yourself? What little fingerprints have you put into your work?
Well, I'll tell you, when I first started writing it, I think I was so overthinking keeping the characters true to how Jeff describes the quote-unquote people in the story from the album. I think I was so tunnel visioned on the lyrics and going, this person wouldn't say this or can't think like this because Jeff doesn't sing about it like that. And
right.
But when I started writing and I kind of let myself open it up and just started to go, I didn't realize that I was doing it, but I started putting my own likes and dislikes into my characters. Like the main character, like his favorite band in the book is Pink Floyd. It's not even ELO,
Right.
Right. So there's a scene where they go out to dinner and he orders food and he orders fish and chips because that's kind of like my go-to dinner whenever I go out. But I didn't really realize I was doing it when I was writing, but I think it just starts happening naturally. But I did try to stay as true to the characters as I thought Jeff Lynne from ELO would have wanted them to act and behave. But sure enough, I couldn't get away from, putting myself in a bunch of it. So.
As we all do from time to time.
Yeah, right.
Yes. Okay. So, now the next question that we're going to ask is this book purely escapism, or can anyone reading it glean some moral lesson from it?
It's as much escapism as it is getting lost listening to the Time album.
Okay.
That's a good answer?
That's a good enough answer.
Okay, no, I didn't actually rehearse that. That just kind of came out of my mouth.
well, that's good enough for both of us. Okay.
I think when you listen to that album, or when you listen to any Electric Light Orchestra album, they sound otherworldly, even when they're just straight out rocking out.
Yes, that's true.
Even in their 4/4 drums, bass, guitar, vocal songs like "Hang On Tight" or Rock King or stuff like that, they even find this way to make you feel like you're somewhere else.
Yes. Even the instrumentals do that. I like one of my favorite instrumentals is "After All," which was a B-side to "Rock and Roll is King." One of the things I think of when I listen to that is that I picture an ice skater skating on ice to the music.
Right. I know that. Yeah, the imagery, and I think you bring up a good point because you can almost close your eyes and listen to any ELO song of all of their albums and see something. You see something in the music, and people might kill me for saying this, but I think that's why their music works so well in the movie Xanadu.
Yes,
whether or not
which is oddly enough one of my all-time favorite movies for that.
Yes, it's mine too.
It's so highly debated, though. What I was going to say is whether or not you like the movie is a different story because it seems to be either people despise it or people have found something magical in it.
Yes,
and I think part of the magic of it comes from the tone that ELO used when they wrote the soundtrack.
Yes,
it kind of fits, what's going on. So I think the Time album, if you take their whole discography and lay it across the table, the Time album is the album that you press play, track one, put on headphones, close your eyes, and you're gone for 50 minutes. You never come.
Yes.
I mean, you're So
right.
I think when I wrote the book, I really, really tried to do that for the reader because I know that I know that ELO fans are going to want to read the book, but I'm not stupid. I know that science fiction fans or time travel fans or whatever are going to stumble across it and pick it up and have no idea who ELO is. Maybe I've never even heard of the band in their life. So I didn't want to, steep it so much in the album that someone's not going to get it. I didn't want to have the album first.
You got to. It had to be a mass appeal kind of thing.
Exactly. So I tried really hard to listen to the album while I was writing and say, you know, what's the texture here? What's the tone? What's the mood that the band is putting on the song? So I need to put that mood in what my characters are saying and what they're doing and the tone of the room and everything like that.
Right.
You know, so and as I got deeper into writing the characters and creating the story arc, I realized that the main character, who in the book is named Jeff,
yes,
he's not named Jeff Lynne because I didn't want to get a nasty phone call from Jeff Lynne's lawyer.
Right, right, yeah, exactly. So
I did change the last name, but I kept his first name as the main character. But
and strangely enough, that is Jeff's favorite color. So there you go.
That's what I've heard. The last name Blue.
Yes,
and there's two different songs in the ELO discography where Bluebird is in the title of a song. So
right.
Jeff nicknames his daughter Bluebird because of their last name Blue, and then a throwback to the fact that the word Bluebird is used in ELO songs so much.
Yes.
I caught these little tidbits throughout the book that you will pick up on and other ELO fans will pick up on, but if you don't know who they are, it's just part of the book, and it doesn't seem out of place.
Okay, all right. Go ahead with the next question.
All right.
Go ahead.
Let's see. Okay. All right. Okay. Is this a one-of adventure, or will we see JetBlue in some kind of other work or media, or like a sequel or something?
Well, if you're saying other media, for any director or producer out there listening who wants to read the book and see if they want to put on the big screen, that was my shameless plug of the interview. I'm sorry. I had to get one in,
no problem.
No, absolutely.
When I was writing, the book is based on the album, so I really thought it was going to be just a one-off. It's the book. It's based on ELO's Time album, and it's done. It's over. It's a full circle and all that. I had no intentions of doing anything, but I'll tell you, since it's come out, there's actually been a review on Amazon that has specifically mentioned this, and I've had other people that have read it contact me personally and ask me if I would consider, furthering Jeff's adventure, or if there's anything else more in store for him. So, I guess I never want to say never, but when I was writing, I thought I would say never. But it's interesting how what other people say can get that little light bulb going off over your head again and going, is there something else to explore?
Right. Well, that's something to always consider. Always leave a door open, as we all say in the business. Okay. All right. Now then, you currently live in Japan. You've currently been living in Japan for 4 years, but you're going to be moving back very soon to the States.
Right.
How influential was your time in Japan while writing the book?
Man, I'll tell you. When we first moved here back in 2011, I'm from a big city. I'm from Boston, and my wife and I were both New Englanders. We grew up around big cities, but nothing prepared me for Tokyo. Tokyo is just bright and shiny and fast and huge, and it felt like a different world to me. It felt like we moved to another planet, and the culture. The language, the letters, the kanji, everything about it was just so foreign to me. And I kind of felt like, well, this must be what it would feel like living on the moon. The first couple months we were living here, and it was the first couple months that we were living here that I started developing the book. And as you know, in the album, the main character goes to the moon. He has a one-way ticket to the moon. So I knew that a large portion of the book is going to take place on the moon, on a industrialized city that is on the moon in 2095. So, I think what I did was I said, well, this is how I felt when, in Tokyo when we moved here. So this is a good way how Jeff should feel, going to the moon, especially being from 1981. Not only does he wind up in the future, but now he realizes that he can go to this big city on the moon, So, I guess moving here influenced that, what a fish out of water I felt when I got here. So I used that to describe how Jeff may have felt or moved, or things he may have said, or things he may have asked, you know.
Ah, I see. Good, good. Very interesting. Okay.
Reading the synopsis of the book, there's a character in it named Joe, who's an android, and was that inspired by anybody you know? And if so, was it deliberate?
Well, Joe's personality and description is taken directly, line by line, word for word, from the song Yours Truly 2095, from the album. It's one of the most descriptive things that Jeff Lynne writes about in the album. I mean, he spends 3.5 minutes talking about this robot woman in the future that looks and acts just like his wife, and she's nice, but she's cold as ice when he gets too close. I mean, I took that literally. I didn't try to read into that and say, what does he mean? I was like, no, these are very specific words, and I'm using them. So that was easy for me to develop her that way, because I kind of had blueprints right in front of me, so to speak. But I didn't want to keep her this robotic, mechanical character. As the book was written, I wanted her to start to shed some of that. I don't want her to be all Terminator, Right. I wanted to identify with her. So I'm a big fan of Ray Kurzweil's book, The Age of Spiritual Machines. The Age of Spiritual Machines. Right, it's a fantastic novel. In fact, there's a band called Our Lady Peace who wrote an album called Spiritual Machines that is the album adaptation of that book. So it's kind of like the reverse of what I did here. They took the novel and then they wrote a concept album based on the book because they liked it so much. But one of the things I enjoyed about the book was Molly, who's the robot in that book. She slowly throughout the book starts to become human, because the moment she's self-aware of herself, I just said self twice, but the moment that she becomes self-aware that maybe she has feelings or emotions, whether they're pre-programmed or not, she slowly starts to develop a soul or a spirit. So I really wanted to take that and then mash it with the lyrics from the song Yours Truly 2095 and see if I could develop a character that stayed true to the album, but yet develops throughout the book in sort of this spiritual machines, type way where people actually forget she's a robot and start rooting for her as a person when they're reading it.
Good. That's always good to have. Yeah. Okay. All right, then. All right. So, Bird Boy already asked you the question, the last question. I'm going to ask you this one. What other books have you written?
Well, this is my third book. My first book, which was published in 2007, it's called Dreams or Unfinished Thoughts, is actually a personal memoir about a very close friend of mine. His name is David Riley, and he dealt with drug addiction for years. In the music business, he was a signed artist. His band was signed to a major label. They were on American Records. They did some major tours. He was a singer of a band called God Lives Underwater. And we were very, very close, and I kind of went through the whole struggling with the addiction and the throes of the music industry with him. And he passed away in 2005, and I had a real hard time dealing with his death. I had real hard. I couldn't figure out where to put the grief, so to speak. And I started writing a memoir about our time together and what it was like being friends with someone like that. More for my own grieving, I guess. It was more for me, but fans started hearing that I was doing this. Fans of God Lives Underwater and his solo material, and I realized that there was people out there that actually wanted to read what I was writing. And once it came out, it took on a life of its own. And I'd like to think that maybe it's helped give closure to some of his fans who really didn't know what really happened to him. Stuff, and maybe help some people who have family or friends who are going through something that I went through, caring about somebody who struggles with drug addiction. Right. And then my second book is my first work of fiction. It's called Welcome to Parkview, and that came out in 2010. And, that it started off being a collection of short stories who all live in the same town. But as I was writing, I started bringing characters from other stories into the story I was writing, and I was borrowing a plot line from here. So I said, maybe this is a novel just, made up of smaller pieces. So I kind of started writing it again from the beginning and using the town as like the main character.
I see.
But this is what's funny. After I published the book, I found that it was being reviewed online as in a genre called cerebral horror. That's what it was being tagged as, which I never even heard of that. I didn't even know that was a separate genre at first.
Right.
But as I realized that there is a genre called cerebral horror, I realized that it's a genre that I love, and I didn't realize how many movies and books that I enjoy that are in it. So I became like really excited after the fact that, I kind of got lumped in or contributed, a book to that genre. So that was pretty cool.
Excellent. Okay, Bertie, ask him the last question, and it really comes back to what you were saying before, Brian. So shoot.
Okay, how would you feel about someone producing an adaptation of your book on the big screen, or maybe a DVD?
Are you kidding? I've already put the casting call out once. I can send another one out there. The thing, and I've said this before, and I think you'll agree, the Time album itself is just screams to be seen. I think in a different medium than just the music. It's so big, and there's so much depth, and it's so colorful.
Right.
And there's so many people who love that album. It's amazing to me, how many people, ELO fans and not ELO fans, really say, "Oh, that Time album holds a special place in my heart."
Yes.
So, to be honest, if someone wants to turn my book into the movie, hey, that's more power to them. But even if someone didn't want to use my book specifically, but wanted to take their own vision of the album and turn it into a movie, I think, again, I can't believe somebody hasn't tried.
Yeah. And this is something that I initially wanted to do some time ago, because we're both my co-host and I are big animation fans, right. and we figured and thinking about it, because we were just talking about this earlier, I think that if the book is going to be made, it should probably be made as an animated feature. It lends itself to that for some reason.
Yeah, some of the sounds
so much more in animation than you can
with live action.
Right.
It has a different flavor to it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It does, and I think some of the sounds sound almost animated. Some of the keyboard work in the album and some of the guitar.
Yes.
Right.
Hey, how about a Broadway musical?
Oh, there you go. Hey,
there you go. Yeah, now that would be good.
Yeah, it could be the follow-up to Xanadu,
Right. Green Day did their American Idiot album on Broadway, I think, right? And
yes, they did.
And Billy Joel.
Now. Billy Joel, they have a big Billy Joel revival thing. There's ABBA doing, plays with ABBA. There's the Beatles have the Circus Soleil thing.
Right. So I say ELO's Time on Broadway.
Yes. Yeah, and of course I do know an ELO fan too who has contemplated putting some songs on Broadway, and of course we already know that the whole Xanadu thing was a really big hit on Broadway and stuff, and it's just that cool.
Right.
Well, and so that pretty much wraps up this interview, and thank you very much, Brian. We really did enjoy this very, very much.
I was going to say, if there's do you have any final thoughts or anything that you'd like to add or tell somebody out there?
I was just going to say, if you're listening and you don't really know a lot about ELO, just start buying some of their albums. If you do like ELO, I think you'd really enjoy my book. Even though it's based on the Time album, I use something from almost every album. There's one of the main characters' name is Horace from the Diary of Horace Wimp.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's not just the Time album. I really went through their catalog and said, you know, what little Easter eggs can I throw in, you know, for ELO fans? So,
oh yeah, and that's always good when you throw it when people throw in little Easter eggs like that. It makes it a lot more fun.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So thank you again, and you have a wonderful week. Okay.
Yeah.
And I did order a copy of the physical copy of the book. Okay.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
All right then. So you take it easy. All right.
Great. You too. Thank you.
All right then. Bye bye.